Oh, the recording has started. Thank you very much to the Red Wheelbarrow Collective for the invitation. Thanks to everybody who has come out today. And thank you to Botsotso for orchestrating the invite and also the book. IGoli EGoli. We'll use this as a little launch online. We did launch the book on Saturday here in Josie. I'm going to read you some poems, more or less in the order. I just want to note that we are competing with the opening of Parliament. And so let me begin with some poems touching on subjects which unfortunately I doubt will be touched on in today's address from the new government here in South Africa. Inclines. Going up, the ways are manifold, slow rising, smooth rising, concrete steps, stone, steps studded in glass blocks, recycled objects, steps steeped in green. The real question, what is below? The spread, life forms and their density, ratios, the matter of their sustenance. The distance between top and bottom is a relation of sight, spirit, mind. Balance comes only with balance. First road. Roman warriors tearing African sky. The estate fence greets us to first road, arrived upon through a few wrong turns. Towering fences hiding, luxury homes, glimpses stolen through gates. At the end of first, we reach our destination. Hyde Park Corner that always recalls Manila's remittance malls. Super sanitary, self-cleaning seats, more than a step up from Rosebank toilets, never visited by Ivorian philosopher Jean, now a Rosebank car guard, nor the majority transferring Kumbi taxis there. Arriving at our only interest in the corner, red chamber, not nearly as old as Swallows Inn, white tables, later an East Asian, a couple mixed race, table talk, deals, back operations, theater, Cape Town getaways. Can you hear me? I see a message in the chat.
I can hear you fine on my side. Is
okay,
anyone?
excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Hulusong Emergency. Portrait of the president as you enter, cemented down plastic chairs, 5 perfect piles of pamphlets, use condoms, have peace of mind, hashtag no regrets. Once through the scratchy door with 4 beige lines to wait on a bed, blue cooler box, samples for laboratory, 4 of 7 supply shelves filled, ceiling circle of perforated steel, fluffy gray center, a sprinkler, functioning, periodic, sorry for the wait, car crash in Boxburg on a short staff Sunday, posted on the wall, the rule of nines, an open palm with digits extended equals 1% of the body's surface area. Mammogram waiting room, Rudyport. 6 frames of flowers, plush velvet, filigree cased mirrors, doilies, lamps, embroidered drapes, large photo print, ladies knitting knee blanket for Lupardsvey Old Age Home. Caption, Mandela Dag, Mandela Day, 18/07/2012. Excess death, or acer rubrum. Delayed, doubled COVID grant, visit to a friend's, firewater, cracking, prickling, raw and patchy, green, scarlet, red, amber. She didn't return. Westine winter, or masculinity. Think layers of the onion, thin but tenacious, almond, plum, chestnut, thick and ridged, unyielding, slippery film, parts that make us cry the most. Think again, liquid amber tree, resin that flavored, first pipe shared by Emperor Montezuma with Hernando Cortez, seed hard and burnished, spikes betraying holes. The way the seed changes, umber, burnt sienna, khaki, bronze bisque, lychee size to cherry. Think again, prickly seed of the London plane tree, mini beige breadfruit that shrinks, still hanging or not for late bloom, soft buff fuzz, only in winter. Full Madamas, or only in Josie 2, or on Love 45. Downtown Montreal, you used to eat full at Basha's student rate. Then in London for breakfast, with Widad and small daughter, escaped from Sudan, chili powder and salt, small piles on the side. Years later, Marianne raving how they serve it like her Armenian mums, with fresh tomatoes, parsley, spring onion in the Lebanese grocery near Little Italy, Ottawa. Only in Josie at Café Liban, after reading how Raoul relished full in Tigray, picked up somewhere in Egypt. Did you feel all this? Wealth. 5 sounds of t, 2 sounds of k, 4 click sounds. How many sounds does your language make? 20 consonants, 6 vowels, 45 sounds, 4,000 characters. Can we say the more letters, characters, sounds, tones, the more richness and subtlety accommodated within? Within what? A language, culture, people, and the many shared places of peoples, metropolis, country, world, cosmos. Where do we meet and how? Who attempts first to make unfamiliar sounds? Do we meet at all? If not, why not? 20 letters, 10 sounds, 6 clicks, 1,000 characters. How many worlds does your tongue embrace? This is the last one that I'll do for now. I'm just looking at the time, yeah. Mushrooms in Mint, or On Love 48, for Maisha Jenkins, 1948 to 2020. Still bringing us together 2.5 years on. Tuesday Poets WhatsApp group you created for Maisha's memoirs, podcasting our poetry and jazz to celebrate your life soon to end. Josie House of Poetry, where we first met, at the Bioscope where you started it and chose to move to African Freedom Station when Maboneng became too lit. Out there sessions you spawned at the Orbit, adding a new instrument, stanzas to valves, reeds and keys, featuring so many poets, musicians, rarely yourself, you and a few springing Fila Sister Collective, poets still backstage, early 21st century Africa, soft fists heaving the needles, as Plath once wrote. How in laughter remembered, you remembered the poetry of a young girl's fierce hug, raw truth, unfurling art for humanity in schools branching beyond the choice few to South Africa's many languages, spoken, written, drawn. Mushrooms that first appeared in my mint patch day after you passed. Orange on green yesterday, white on green today. What are you doing out so late, Ma? You once wrote. Mushrooms in mint, you answer now, like stanzas and jazz. Thank you. I wanted to take some inspiration from Alan Horowitz, who presented last week here. And he did a poem asking for people to respond with certain answers. What I want to do to bring you all in a little bit is to ask you to think about themes about the city of Joburg or maybe the city where you are and write them into the chat. What I will do then is try to find a poem in the book that responds to the theme that's on your mind. So I will ask our host to maybe just call out the themes as they come up in the chat. How's that? Does that make sense?
Perfect. Okay. We've got inspiring, and then someone just said Joburg. Francis, you have to say a theme about Joburg.
Oh, okay. Joburg as the theme. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And then we've got a city that never sleeps.
Ah, okay, that's good. Okay, no, let's go one by one.
Oh, one by one. Okay. So Joburg. Oh,
Okay.
we keeping that one.
Yeah, definitely. Let me do, yes, here we go. Down Main Street, Melville, or Umsebenzi. Non-public post office, gone used bookshop, plantain, fufu, coriander sausages, handmade steak pasty, Sadr Lao sprawling spaza wall, fine macrame in rough cotton cream, some with beads, slightly soiled, bush hung in traffic circle to keep me in IGoli.
Oh, I love that one. We've
Thank
got
you.
a city that never sleeps.
Ah, yes. City that never sleeps. Okay. How about this one? On Love 42. Do you all have papers they are checking at Rosebank? No, we must protect you. We are here. We eat every day because of you. You are our brothers and sisters. Sizwile turned back to Diepsloot for her passport, re-began the trip, but didn't need it. The next taxi driver took the back roads.
I like this. This is so fun. Okay, we've got commuting.
Ah, commuting. Okay, that one could also work that way. Okay, but how about this one? Footsteps. 9 years living again in Africa. I've traveled in the south, returned east and north, never west. Re-meeting Eve 3 years after the start of COVID, who tells me Zidudu is victory in Ewe. I start hearing how much I've learned of West Africa, living in Jozi, dried cassava strips, revolutionary Guinea via Miriam, Kente love, how some Burkinabe women stretch themselves to be the ends that meet. Right here, away to West Africa, deepening encounters in IGoli.
Okay. Divided.
Divided, yes. There are a lot of
Mm.
divisions to talk about in Josie. And I think if you have picked it up so far, what I'm trying to do in the book is one, follow what Cislindi talked about at my last book launch in Cape Town, actually. I think Cislindi is here tonight. To lay bare, just to lay things bare in order to look at them as they are. And then the other thrust in the book is to give images and voice and description to the love of the city, the larger love, which is everything from Ubuntu to searching for little known histories and presence, to love as sparing, love as salve, recognizing and reconstructing the larger love. Pumla Gobodo Madigizela also talks about Inimba in a similar way, which is a form of collective healing in her interpretation to the historical trauma, which is so ever present. So on that note, divisions. I'm looking here for a poem called Shrieking Yellow, page 36. Shrieking Yellow. Silence, hesitating to speak one's language on a bus. Faint yelping, what a child hears inside sounds 5 walls down. Yammering a name, woman who's lost her mother, several siblings, baby thrown to fire. Stressing certain syllables, 90-year-old matriarch, head of a family of 9, fleeing persecution, 3rd time in 2 decades. Feigned silence, teenage girl raped at home regularly by the border. Wheezing cries, coal stoves in lungs. Shrieking yellow, mine dump mountains. Dead silence, gate marked enter at own risk.
Okay. We have a city that works for a few. I like that one.
There's definitely a lot of poems like that in the book. Thank you. This is fun because I'm doing a lot of poems that I didn't do on Saturday. Counter clock, clock. Saturday, along a road back to Africa from the northern suburbs, after the used car shops, OK Foods, RT Internet, ShopRite, Liquor Shop, Curry Den Fast Food and Supermarket, South African Police Service Sophia Town, multi-color boulders, a park teeming with women, children, bedsheets swathed in sun-bathing clothes. Stop over Africa, Invest Auto, Weepon Bikes, Divine, Muti Shop, AMG Halal, Bamenda Boy Auto Body, orange pyramids tilted against red crochet onions, puffy green bushels not grown in ShopRite or Bismillah supermarket, sweet potatoes, half the arm, marrow thin man, writhing to bellow beats. If you turn the other way, broad avenues, Arthur Matthews Primary School, Baker's Paradise, Gondwana Environmental Solutions, Rhodes Park, McDonald's, Drone Valley, Angelique Cook Sisters, Mkonto Manufacturing, Florida Hills Veterinary, West Rand Oncology, Play School Academy, Chicken Licken, Wheelchairs on the Run, Golf Club Terrace, Florida Fire Station, Modise Computer College, Lexus Security.
Okay. Seems that I missed one. Frank would like you to do inspired.
Frank, oh, okay. Frank was part of producing this book. He did some editing. Thank you to Frank. Inspired, yes. I want to do spirit on page 44. Spirit. Full black mid-calf skirt, ivory gilet, black vines to knees, modest beaded doek, lightly touched lips, mouthing words of an open book, Yamanua perambulating the incline, Glasgow and forth. Yamanua means woman of today in the Andean languages. So there is a woman of today, very inspiring, just down the road from where I live in Johannesburg.
That's so beautiful. Okay. Do we want to do some more?
I'm open. Do people have
Okay.
themes? More
Yes.
themes?
So somebody said the most unlikely place to find love.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
On Love 54, the last poem in the book. Along Table Mountain's feet, Nayamanzi, parasols that harbored me when I first landed. 19 years on, diaphanous, you come to visit. East African Rift to Cape Fold via Rockies and Rio Grande Rift. Acacia seed necklet gifted to Yasodhara by Rupasiri, farewell at a foot of the Himalayas. When Yasodhara reached home to greet her parent like I didn't, Pamita said, I have now passed to another world in which pain and death are my greatest reality, and I understood your final silence. 6 trunks braiding up a foot of the Michalisberg, fine vine green, climbing the center, rhizomes resting beneath, surfacing at times to visit. That's a poem after Shyam Selvadurai's novel, Mansions of the Moon, and a dream that I had in Michalisberg.
I love that that's the last poem in the book. I feel like that's so special. Okay, we've got beautiful.
Only in Josie 3. Raoul said in London, when I made Vagarela Chokha, it was the best of mine he'd tasted, that his mom in Mexico would fry eggs in a sauce like mine. 24 years, 7 more cities, I try mastering those eggs. Only in Josie, with Mzansi lover of Ecuador, do I succeed.
Oh, I think that's my favorite one. I think that's my
Mhm.
favorite one so far. I love that one. Okay, we've got home away from home.
Hey, home away from home. That's a great one. Dharam. Sitting on pomegranate velour throne in her public housing apartment, downtown Calgary, 1972 Uganda refugee, peeling dharam, gifting us with juicy gems. 2. Anar. 40 years on, in one of Africa's pomegranate heartlands, I learned from a friend's Facebook the art of peeling anar, cutting cross down from rose leather crown. Cross my heart, she said, anar is my favorite. Gulab mapera, walking in Westine to visit a friend. My daughter, lover of pomegranate spots, a pomegranate tree. Unseen before, so close to home. Recalling my parents spotting Gulab Mapera on the drive to Hana. I say, fetch a stick. First time they'd seen them since 1950s East Africa. Climbing car roof, tapping branches, rose flavor riches, falling into praying palms. Gharanata Halinadi. Via Rotterdam, the world buys many from South Africa. But a handful of South Africans I've met know the pomegranate, grew up eating it. One said there were trees in every second house where his gogo worked. He and his friends ate plenty of granata, but when he left, he stopped seeing them. The way my Nanima's apartment was sold to private developers, Halinadi is not for the majority, multi-gem fruit following roots flowing out.
Okay, I think that this will be the last one. We've got searching / loss / memory.
Great. Origins. Lands. It was Golda, mother of Sophie, not Herman, who brought the first piano to town. Golda's daughter's husband sold the land, became known as the founder of Sophiatown. 2. A few Stone Age artifacts of Botswana nomads remain in the Melville copies. Labor. From Cornwall tin to Benoni coal, many miners came, some settled, their legacy in names, Baragwanath. John Barag started the department store. Some sailed home. After large numbers began dying the White Death. 2. John Nkadimeng, trade unionist, liberationist, ambassador to Cuba, never knew his father, Bab Mahudu. Pedi migrant worker in the Witwatersrand mines, early 1900s, who contracted silicosis and died after a month-long donkey journey home. Capital. The battery system, workers for cattle via recruiters and chiefs. When the workers had complaints, workers from British West Africa via Belgian Congo helped them write English letters to compound managers. 2. These whitish rocks are quartz, signs there is gold in the vicinity. Leopold Reinecke came with seam tracking technology and knew how to use it, passing the information to goldfields. He considered this insider knowledge and refused Goldfields shares. 3. Largest dry port in the world, prehistorically an ocean floor, futuristically a dry island amid rising seas or melding into acid mine water.
Thank you. Thank you. That was so, I feel like every poem that you read felt like a wash over. It felt so cleansing in a way. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much. So we will move into the Q&A session, and I want to start us off. You mentioned that I made a note of it actually. You said we must lay things bare in order to really see them. And I was wondering, do you do the same with memories? And if so, how do you do that?
Can you say the middle part of the question
The question.
again? Sorry.
So
Just
you
the middle.
said that in order to lay things bare, in order to really see things, we need to lay them bare. So I would like to know if you do that with memories as well, and if you do that with memories, how do you go about doing that?
That's great. I think, yes, we must do it with memories. And as so much of our memories are in the body, it's often when you feel them
Mm,
that you can begin to lay them bare. So what I tend to do is write. I write them down.
mm,
And maybe I even edit them, meaning I edit the language to better arrive at the kernel of the memory. So, what is the message that the subconscious or the conscious is giving you at that moment to bring that body memory back? So, I find that words really help to sharpen my understanding. And then I keep them around on paper and often put them into poems,
mm.
combine them with other things. Yeah. Or maybe
Amazing, thank you.
just elaborating further on them. But usually it is linked, yeah, to something more current.
Mm, I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you have a question, you can just, okay, Jacques, you can go ahead and raise your hand and then I'll give you the go ahead. Jacques, you can go ahead.
Hi there, Salima. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, I do.
Okay. I it's a double question really. I love I like Kirsten, I love what you said about laying things bare, and I love that relationship you set up right at the beginning between top and bottom. And I'm curious about the who you were reading, who were the poets and writers and thinkers you were reading and loving as you wrote these poems. Because I heard Marx in there, but I heard other things that I can't quite place. And the other part of my question is, I feel your poems, for me, they often start as almost lists of images, and then it's very fascinating for me that you then gradually reveal how they belong together. So there's this slow release of a revelation. I wonder if you want to say something about how poems arrive for you, because a lot of thought seems to go into them, but they also feel very inspired.
There's definitely a lot of inspiration, both read in books and felt. I think just walking through the city, for example, in this
Mm,
book.
mm,
Now, this book, I've basically been writing for the past 9 years, living here in Johannesburg. And it even began before in many ways. I lived a year in Cape Town, about 10 years before I got to Johannesburg. And there's a poem from a section of a book that was inspired by my time in Cape Town that is in this book, and I read it tonight. It's the one called Wealth. So there's the influences that are there even before you arrive in many ways. So it's very hard for me to say all the various things I was reading in the last 9 years, because as a researcher, I read a lot. But definitely there's Marx, there's a lot of history that I consulted, there's a lot of botany
mm,
scientists that I consulted, because there's that sub theme of trees in this book. So uncovering the origins of trees in this city, making distinctions between the indigenous trees and the trees that were imported. Oh yeah, I think I did a poem about some of the trees. And the process is similar to, I guess, what I just talked about in terms of memory. I take a lot of notes and newspapers and radio news. Yeah, that's another big nonfiction source that I draw on. So yeah, I take notes of all the things that jump out at me. And later on, I formulate them, maybe into a poem, maybe into some creative nonfiction, maybe into a research paper or an essay.
Wow. Wow. Is there a moment when you know, okay, this is going to be an essay, it's going to be a poem?
Sometimes, I write a poem when I really should be writing an essay. And then people point that out to me and I think about it and I try to make the time. But yeah, I think now, after having written several books, I do tend to know what should be what. Yeah, like for example, I don't know if I'll have a chance today, but I have a long poem that I wrote about the city of Cape Town through the trees of the city. And that one, I knew it wasn't an essay, but it did take me about 9 months to write and research. So,
Wow.
yeah, I think that I like poetry and creative nonfiction as forms because I think they reach more people than the other stuff I write. The research papers are the worst in terms of access.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's anyone else that has a question, you can just go ahead and unmute yourselves. Vanessa? Vanessa, are you there? I see your hand is raised.
Sorry, man. I got a bit confused about the unmute button.
Sure.
Salimah, when one look, I can't wait to read the book. I mean, to get the copy. I just can't wait. But thanks for the poems. And when one looks at the title, one thinks about the title, IGoli EGoli. The thing that comes to mind is this space that has been created as a monument to capital, to colonialism, to exploitation. But what I love about the poems, even though you put the pain in there and you connect people's lives, I think what I love about the poems I've heard tonight is the way you don't just reduce it to this depersonalized space, a space where we came to find jobs, a space where we came to make a living in a colonial apartheid world. But actually, you bring to life the essence of beingness, the essence of humanity. So I just want to say thank you for that. I'm really looking forward to getting my copy. Thanks.
Thank you, Vanessa. Great to see you here.
I think Frank had his hand up. I'm not sure. Frank, it went down again. Do you still have a question?
Yes, I can go. Thank you. Thanks, Salimah, for that. Many of the lines just stay with one. And it's not just the lines as in words, but sometimes the image or, in all the different poems. My question is that I realize that you sometimes do read together with younger people who obviously have a kind of a different practice. And if I was just listening to you describing how informational, there's a backdrop to what you do. So the question is, I guess in that articulation, what is it that's great about that when you do read together with young people? yeah, what is the mutuality that comes out of that? Thank you.
Today, or on Saturday, when we launched the book, I invited two thinkers of this city to respond to the poems. And one of those people is Kwaz Root, who is a younger poet. I mean, at least younger than me. He's not, as young as some, but definitely another generation of poets. And Kwaz took two poems from the book and wrote his response in the form of two poems. And what was so amazing about that is he actually picked one statue from the poem called Remap, where I'm trying to underline the non-male figures of the city. And he took one of the statues, Brenda Fassi, and talked about it in terms of hands. So hands that take and hands that give. And the story of that statue is that it used to be in front of the baseline bar, and it had been damaged many times, as you probably know, Frank, and others who know Johannesburg. And then it just disappeared. And one day we saw it in front of the Market Theater. And so Kwaz was talking about how he himself has touched that statue, taken photos with it, and he started to think of how that might have actually damaged this bronze of Brenda Fassi, and yet how she gave so much to us through the statue and through the lyrics that are etched onto her body of the statue. So, I mean, it just gave so many more dimensions to my poem. And I think, I mean, that's really the gift of sharing and bringing people in, because they bring their experience. And as a poet, it's bound to be completely different. And then the expression brings, of course, more insight, which then invites experiences of so many others who then interpret what is being offered by the artist.
Great, thank you. I do think there should be more spaces for poets who are like the younger poets, like the Kwaz poets, and then the poets who are actually not always in their circles. And exactly the takeaways on both sides, can be really great. So super. Yeah, thanks for that.
I think that is the wealth of any city, but that any city really can offer, but we have to make it happen. So you're right, Frank. I mean, we don't have enough of such spaces, but also we don't have time to build them. And that's why we have to constantly be thinking about it in order for it to happen.
Yes, and just a last comment is that very often they sometimes get into a slam format. Now, the slam format, it's a bit limiting for that kind of dialoguing between us, because it's really something that's between them and they're competing with each other and the mindset's all a little different. It is valuable, but they should break away from that now and again to have some spaces which are exactly like the one you had with Kwaz. That was so amazing. I did actually see the video, so that was was
Oh,
awesome.
wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank. I see Sianda, you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Salima, for the beautiful reading. I really enjoyed it. So my question, I've got two, but maybe I'll stick to one, depending on time. When you write, to what extent are you writing with the stage in mind? In other words, is there an awareness as you write of how the poem sits on the page relative to if you were to perform it, and whether there would be a distinction in the articulation on the page versus when you actually perform or recite the poem? And then if I can maybe ask the second question, just perhaps gleaning from what Frank was talking about in terms of these spaces and how they allow for dialogue, and maybe peeling the layers regarding the work. So when a poem is on the page, as the author, there's perhaps an intended message to the work that can sometimes be lost in translation, given that the audience is only interacting with the work as they perceive it, as they interpret it, compared to when there is an interaction and you gain a bit of insight. To what degree do you care about people understanding the work as you intended compared to an openness or a tolerance for people projecting their own lived experiences and meaning to the work? Thanks.
Thanks for these deep questions. When I'm writing, I am not thinking about delivering beyond releasing the poem from my body and head space. I think that these poems are a gift. I think they're coming from spirits, or as the Arabs say, they're in Arabic literary traditions, they talk about al-jinn, and these are the inspirations coming to the author. I don't know where these come from, but I'm sure that it's beyond me. So just skipping to your second question for a minute, given that these inspirations are coming from beyond me, I must be open for them to be interpreted as needed and desired by the listeners and the readers. When I do want a very pointed meaning to come through, I do use footnotes. And this book in particular has quite a few footnotes. Let me see here, 77 in total. So when I want to be informative, then I will add those footnotes. But the poems are still definitely wide open for the taking. And I love, as you say, to be in the presence of the people hearing the work, to have a little bit of back and forth. So I can also learn what your interpretation is, for instance, of the last poem I did.
Okay. No, thanks for that, Salima, because I think the reason I was asking, I always feel in my own practice some insecurity about certain work, that it might be misinterpreted. And I'm a bit upset. I obsess a bit about wanting the audience to understand what I'm trying to say instead of project their own meanings. So I tend to be a bit insecure about that, but I take the suggestion that perhaps footnotes bridge that gap. So I'll try and integrate that into my own personal practice. Thank you so much.
And here's one more thought for you, Sianda. Maybe a
Mm.
little bit of both is good too.
Mm. Mm.
A little bit of interpretation and a little bit of your directed message.
Yes. Thanks, Salimah. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sianda. Jen, and then Fizile.
Hi everyone. These were really lovely, and the discussion or the conversation also has been really I don't know, informative, interesting. I think somebody mentioned imagery, and I can't remember who it was. So there was that imagery there. I also noticed that you wrote a lot about food. Um, there's the part where you talk about the dish that somebody mentioned that you cooked better than somebody, but you also mentioned mapera, which is guava, right? I grew up eating those in Uganda, so that kind of took me there. So I don't know. I thought that was I suppose evocative, but I don't know what your there's sort of like this cultural intentional use of cultural artifacts or items or pieces or whatever, and what you're thinking around that is, whether you want to say something.
Thank you. That's a great question, Jen. Do you know gulab mapera?
Yes.
Okay, no, so gulab mapera is we don't know the name of this thing. So mapera is a Swahili word, as you said, and gulab means pink in my mother tongue, which is Kutchi, Gujarati. So this fruit is just this big. It's very sweet. It has a pretty big stone. It's unlike guava and unlike anything that you find anywhere. And that's why my parents, who are from Tanzania and Uganda, were very thrilled to see this in Hawaii when they bumped into it, driving to a volcano. We were all there in the car. What I want to bring out in this book is how food is a form of love and a form of coming together, which happens all the more in a big city. So many more foods, many more peoples, and many more possible meetings. But like the poetry and politics, those meetings only happen when we make them happen. So it amazes me always in a big city how so few people are actually trying to make those connections. Often it's the migrants themselves more than anyone else. Maybe it's people from smaller cities of the same country. It's always a random group that you can find that are willing to meet each other. But I think that food is a very human way of connecting and building unity. So this book definitely has a lot of food in it. I should say that for people interested in the book, maybe check out the Botsotso website and get a copy. You know, in this reading, of course, and other readings, you can't really read footnotes. That becomes very heavy. But that would be a good reason to get the book and read it, because then you can get a few more layers of the meaning of each poem. Yeah, several
Is
poems.
it? Oh, so sorry,
Oh,
Salimah.
no. Yeah, I'm just looking at how many of the poems do have footnotes, and it really is several. Some have 5 footnotes.
Okay, Fizile, when you're ready.
So, hi everyone. Hi Salimah.
Oh,
Very
Facey,
lovely.
so good to see you here.
Hi. Yeah, it's so great to be here. You mentioned that this book and the poems have been like 9 years in the making. And I mean, so much and yet so little has changed since then, and especially, even about Johannesburg. So I wanted to just get your reflection that you're feeling right now as you read, the poems, like where exactly, maybe like that, if I can ask, you're finding yourself, or what kind of emotions, like, is it still the same? Is in like at all, with when you started, and what has changed? That's a bit more interesting for you.
Thank you. That is a tough question. I think for me, the feeling about the city that has changed the most is I have overcome a lot of fears that I had. I had to break down those fears in walking around, figuring out and moving around, driving. I was afraid of driving initially. And I broke through that. I started driving. As you put down footsteps, then you get to know the city much better, and you feel much more at ease. In terms of the city beyond my immediate experience, what I think has changed in the past 9 years is that the divide has grown. The hardship is much larger. And for a growing majority, it was already a majority. And I'm not sure we're really thinking about what to do about it. Of course, there's a lot of initiatives and talk, but how are we as individuals coming together into larger, even slightly larger circles to undo or begin undoing the divides? I'm not sure. So unfortunately, that's where I'm at now on the larger socioeconomic questions of the city.
Thank you, Salimah. Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Yeah, it was really informative, and I'm grateful for all your answers. It's really, I think, for those of us in the room that are writers ourselves, I think I speak for everyone when I say your answers were really enlightening and refreshing. So thank you. Okay.